Welcome back, everyone. Tom Funk here, and today I want to share with you my Kekakovic Trail and Border Route Trail adventure, which was my 50th birthday present to myself. And I hiked these in 2017 and 2018. If you haven't already, subscribe to Tom Funk's World Adventures. Go down here to the bottom right hand corner and click on the logo and then on subscribe. All right, here we go. 100 miles of rabbit track, the Border Route and Kekakovic Trails. So these trails are pretty remote and rugged, and I did not want to hike these by myself. So I had to find some folks that would have the time and the gumption to take on these remote wilderness hiking trails. So they've been on my list for a while, and I just happened to have the opportunity to find a couple of friends of mine that would go with me. The thing is, we had a shuttle nightmare to accomplish. This is a roadless area. It's not like you can just drive down the road and then drive back. What we had to do is we drove up and rendezvoused in the Upper Peninsula, and then we drove to, I think it was Silver Bay in Minnesota, rented a U-Haul truck, brought our vehicle we had driven to the end point, which was Loon Lake area in the Boundary Waters. Then we drove this U-Haul all the way around, all the way to Ely, and then we took a shuttle from Ely to the trailhead, and then hiked the trailhead all the way back to our truck. So two of us had to be in the back of the truck for part of the trip, and it was not the most ideal situation, but we made it work. So I'd like to dedicate this to my friend Mike Otis. He's the gentleman on the left here. He recently passed away, and he's going to be sorely missed, as he was always up for going on my crazy backpacking adventures. This is his son Keith right here. This is Tammy right here. She went with us on the Kekakovic. And then, of course, there I am on the right-hand side. So this is for you, Mike. And let's go on and see what we're going to endeavor in. I'd like to point out the North Country Trail, it goes from everything from downtown urban situations to wilderness areas, and it crosses a road of some sort every mile or so, but not on the Kekakovic. There are no road crossings. You hike about 45 miles from one end to the other. Either you make it or you don't. There's no hitching a ride out or anything like that. So the thing I insisted on everybody doing was taking out an evacuation policy, and we did take a DeLorme GPS unit with us that had a satellite communicator just in case we got into any sort of trouble. All right, so as I mentioned, no road crossings at all. We had to, cross our fingers and hope we made it to the end. So that being said, I say, that you need to be brave and smart about these trails. Not necessarily an experienced backpacker. You really need to know you need to know the signs and navigation skills, and you're going to come to situations like this photo here where the trail just ends at a beaver dam and the trail's on the other side of that lake. So you have to be brave. You have to get from point A to point B. There's no turning around. So being brave was probably the best skill set to have on these, and also being smart about your hiking. So there's your trail on the ground. You can see it, and it didn't always look like that. And on my YouTube page, you can go in there, and there's a whole section on the Border Route Trail and videos showing you various trail conditions. This is a lightly maintained trail. It does not get trail maintenance every year since it is in such a remote area. So you had to have very good trail sense to stay on the lane and stay on the trail. And thank goodness Mike and Keith were both trackers. Tammy's an experienced backpacker, as is myself. So we only lost the trail a few times. So again, you have to be brave. There are no trail marks on this. There's no logos, there's no paint, there's nothing. What you look for is signs of trail maintenance, where a pair of loppers have cut a branch, a chainsaw has removed a log, rocks have been moved out of the way. That's kind of your trail markers, is looking for trail maintenance. So some things we look for: rock cairns. We find those every once in a while. Every once in a while, we find a piece of blue flagging tape. And here's cut trees on the top right-hand side. So when we lost the trail and then refound it, we would actually put up a piece of blue flagging tape to help people find the trail so it wouldn't happen again. We didn't do that too many times, but it certainly helped us as we were making our way through the area. All right, so we put someone in the lead, and that was Keith, and he is a hunter, and he's very good at animal tracking, and he pretty much kept us on track for our whole hike. So we didn't see very much of Keith because he was, a good 100 feet ahead of us, and it was so thick, but we could hear him, and we did stay in communication with him, and I'll show you how we did that here in a minute. Our biggest challenge was fire. In the past, it cleared out the vegetation, then new stuff came in. It was very thick, very short. We also experienced a lot of blowdowns because the soil is very shallow, and we'd have to negotiate fallen trees. So this was a constant, ongoing issue with both the Border Route Trail and the Kekakovic. And you can see these these trees right here in the foreground. They're blowdowns, and you can see a lake in the distance. The Kekakovic Trail, we didn't have the vistas like we did on the Border Route Trail. The Kekakovic was walking through basically brand new forest that had regrown after blowdowns and fires. So we didn't have very many scenic views on the Kekakovic. So here's Parent Lake, as you can see, very beautiful. It was very nice to get to these campsites. As the days were short because we were up there in September, and the nights were cool. We really wanted to get into camp, get set up, eat, and get to bed at a decent hour. So the deadfall, this is a common occurrence. That is myself crawling underneath yet another log. We did hundreds of these on both the Border Route and the Kekakovic. If you are hiking, say, 2.3 miles an hour when you're on a normal backpacking trip, you need to cut that by 2/3. We were barely doing a mile an hour, so we were budgeting 7-8 miles a day to do these trails because it was just so thick with deadfall, downfall, and the trail just was very hard to find. So it was a mental challenge at times, and it really did sap you of energy. So don't think you're gonna crank these trails out if you do take them on. It's also very rocky. We tripped and stubbed our toes quite a bit as we hiked. I'm a big proponent of thick-soled boots, even on sandy trails. And one of us wore trail hikers. And there's advantages and disadvantages to both. I wear the thicker ones because I don't like feeling rocks through my soles. And at the end, all our feet looked miserable. They were all tore up, bruised, cut, and everything else just because it was such a hard trail on our feet. So on the Kekakovic, we only had 1 day of rain. On the Border Route Trail, I believe we had 4 days of rain on the Border Route Trail. So it's kind of nice, and it wasn't that big of a deal for us on the Kekakovic. Top photos from the Border Route Trail where it just constantly rained. And slowed us down quite a bit. And on the Kekakovic, which is bottom photos from, we just had only the 1 day. So, again, I said brave earlier. Now I'm saying smart. You have to come to terms that this is not Pictured Rocks. This is not Isle Royale or any other well-traveled trail. Maybe 100 people a year hike the Kekakovic. Probably less than that hike the Border Route Trail. And this is just a wilderness trail that puts forth conditions you won't experience on well-traveled trails. On the Kekakovic group pages and the Border Route pages, I see people complaining about trail conditions and how slow it is and bridges out. And you know what, guys? it is a wilderness trail in an extremely remote part of the state of Minnesota and the eastern United States. You're just going to have to come to terms with that and deal with these trail conditions. Be smart about it and be brave about it. You'll be fine. But don't expect a walk in the park on these trails at all. So we did a few things on the Kekakovic that we didn't do on the border route. We assigned everybody whistles on the Kekakovic, and we decided to stay close to each other. And what we would do is we would blow the whistle. The trailing party would, and we would have signals. One blow is just to tell us their location. Two blows was basically, hey, wait. And three blows was basically, I'm lost, or where are you? We haven't seen you in a while. I don't think we blew the whistle on a three blast at all on the Kekakovic. I know we did two blasts because Keith would get ahead of us and we'd be falling behind. So we had to stay as a group. Nothing worse than getting separated in a wilderness area. So here we are at a lunch site. Another thing we did here on the Kekakovic that we did not do on the Border Route Trail is we programmed into a GPS where we were going to take our breaks, our lunches, and our campsites. We did not do this on the Border Route Trail, and we kept falling behind. We didn't realize how rugged the Border Route Trail was. So, knowing the Kekakovic was just as rugged as the Border Route, we plugged in these points. And if we arrived early, we could take a longer break. If we arrived late, we would shorten it up. This made us get to our campsites at night on time every night. So it was great that we did this. I think this is probably the smartest thing we did, was plug these in. We didn't use the GPS for navigation. We were using maps and compasses and our trail sense. We just used the GPS to kind of tell us where we were taking our breaks. So very glad that we had done that. So again, we overestimated how much time we could hike on the Border Route Trail. We kept falling behind. Kekakovic, we stayed on track because we planned out our GPS points. So roadless wilderness area. These lakes are deep and they're cold. Fishing, not very good. You're doing shore fishing. They're kind of hard to get to. Usually it's pretty shallow, and you got to get out into the deeper parts of the lakes to catch anything. Border Route Trail, we all brought fishing gear. We didn't catch a single thing. And the Kek, I don't know if anybody brought any fishing gear with them. So fishing is great for canoes, not necessarily so from shore. So you also hear, me say you have to know how to use a map and a compass and bushwhacking. So map and compass was helpful on the Border Route Trail. Lots of opportunities to figure out where we were. Lots of topography, rivers, hills, and we were able to triangulate our positions quite a bit, but didn't work so well in the Kekakovic. We're looking at a wall of young trees for 95% of our hike. So we really couldn't use map and compass for triangulation purposes. Bushwhacking, no way. It was not happening. Wall of trees. If we had to bushwhack, it would have taken a long time to make our way across the landscape. That's what was nice about both the Kekakovic and the Border Route Trail. There'd been enough maintenance over time that a lane had been kind of developed. So if you were walking the lane, you're like, hey, where's the trail? And you would turn left or right, you would immediately realize, oh my gosh, I'm on the trail because there's sort of a lane here and there's nothing to my left and right because it's so thick. So if you lose a trail, best thing to do is keep looking for signs of trail maintenance, which we had done a few times when we did lose the trail. So we also had a goal of 30-pound packs without water, and we were able to share equipment with each other. This helped out quite a bit because it lightened the load, made it easier for us to hike across the landscape. And we wore the same clothes we did every day to help lighten up the load. Of course, we're eating dehydrated, freeze-dried foods. And we only saw 6 humans on the Border Route Trail, and all within an hour of each other. So these guys here were actually drinking beers, and they shared a beer with us. And we ran into a couple of canoers. Actually, I think 4 canoers. Because it was like a husband and a wife here. No, yeah, there were 6. Yeah, 6 people on the Border Route Trail. We'll stick with that. 6 people. We only saw 1 human in 6 days on the Kekakovic. 1 human. So very remote areas. So I used to tell folks Isle Royale was not a good place for new backpackers, and I have since reconsidered my position on that. Isle Royale is a cakewalk. It has a few rocks for good measure. The Border Route Trail is Isle Royale on steroids. The Kekakovic is a rocky rabbit track where Isle Royale is a paved highway. So, uh, if you're a noob, go to Isle Royale. It's wilderness, but you'll be fine. Trust me. If you want a true challenge, I'm telling you, the Border Route Trail and the Kekakovic are the trails you seek out. So here's just some photos of our trail hike. We started obviously on a September Saturday, and then we ended up camping at that parent lake. You can see some various photos. Top right, this is fireweed. Fireweed is a common northern wildflower. And then here's the big Beaver Dam we had to negotiate. Over here, the trail actually went off to the left and into the woods. Thank goodness we didn't have to swim across that thing. That was a fun moment to deal with that. Um, so this was our day of rain. Thankfully, it didn't rain overnight, and it rained in the morning. And this plant right here on the left-hand side, that's actually called white man's foot. It's a plantain. It's non-native, and it was brought in here by the voyagers. The seeds would get on their shoes, and they would trek it into the backcountry. So to see that plant way in the wilderness area is quite uncommon. So this was I think a 9.3 mile hike day. It was a very long, hard day, but we got up early and we arrived early. So this was a nice little hike. And get towards the end, there was a trail that kind of made a loop and it brought you to a mine. And you can see down here right hand side, that's when we reached civilization. We're running into day hikers. Top right is our finish, where we stood at the trail kiosk. And what we ended up doing here is hitching a ride back to Loon Lake because there was a small segment of the Border Route Trail we were hoping to hike. Because we didn't finish it the last time we were there. So there was a small, we were hoping to have the time. We didn't. So we actually had to hitch a ride to go get the truck and bring it back to the trailhead. All right. So if you're interested in hiking this trail, the Border Route Trail, and I'll zoom out here on the Old North Country Trail website, is up here in Minnesota. This green line is Superior Hiking Trail, and where the red line starts is the Border Route Trail. And you can see that it goes through the Superior National Forest, and then in the green, this is the Boundary Waters, and you can see why they call it the Border Route Trail because it kind of goes along the Canadian border. This is a canoe area. The rules are that you need to have a permit. You need to enter on the day that you say you're going to enter. You can camp wherever you want if you are backpacking. Canoers have to stick to an itinerary and stick to their campsite. So this is the Border Route Trail, and there's one road on the Border Route Trail. It's back here someplace, and then I think it's right here. There's a road right here, and then there are no roads until you get all the way over here. Or you could looks like you could hike out to a road if you wanted to, and then we ended up ending right here at Loon Lake. And then, so this segment right here remains to be hiked for myself, and Keith and Tammy. And if we ever get to it, we will definitely think of Mike as we hike along the way. And then here's a Kekakovic. So what we had done is we had rented a truck way down here someplace, drove it all the way up here, dropped it off, doubled all the way back, drove all the way up, and dropped off the truck. And then we took the U-Haul all the way over here to Ely, which is right here. If I can get out there, here's Ely. And where's Ely? Ely, hello. Ely's over here someplace. Gosh, where are you, Ely? It's not even shown on the map. Trust me, Ely is over here someplace. And we took the shuttle over here. This is where we start hiking here at Snowbank Lake. So this is a roadless area. So if you ever do it, there really isn't any public transportation to get you to Ely. There is a shuttle service out of Grand Marais you could use. It's Harriet Corals, highly recommend her. We used her on the Border Route Trail. I think we did the U-Haul because of timing. We just didn't have the time to monkey around with a third-party shuttle to get us where we needed to go. So keep that in mind if you're going to do this trail. You have to get from one point to the other. There's also some lodges and stuff up here. I'm sure you can convince them. Heston's and Gunflint Lodge is up here as well, as long as and Loon Lake Lodge is way over here. Highly recommend Loon Lake Lodge's steak dinner. So there you go, Kekakovic and Border Route Trail. This is one you'll want to plan for. Get your maps, get your head around that this is going to be a rugged trail. It can be done. Highly recommend it. This was a lifetime trip for me. Very glad I was able to do it. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any questions for you. And you can find me on Tom's Trail Tales Facebook page. And be sure to subscribe to Tom Funk's Worldly Adventures, where you'll find more of these web-based tutorials to help you plan your hiking trips. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you again, and happy trails.